lands of the Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we, as beneficiaries of the treaty, must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. Rules for the council chambers. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect for differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councillors, staff, speakers, or fellow members of the public may result in removal from the premises. This also applies to deputations. We ask that you do not approach council members if they are seated in their council seats. The public, unless invited, is not permitted to come into the gated area. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. Mr. Mayor, we have two disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening, both by Councillor Crew. The first one is on item 15D, R24-272, flooring maintenance roster, and another conflict under 21B, Hope Haven Winter Warming Center. We'll now move on to recognitions. Our first recognition is artist feature Karen Green, and I'll pass it over to Councillor Finn to introduce her.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Karen Green. She is a writer and editor living in Chatham with her husband and their 2 teenage daughters. Her poetry, essays, and fiction have appeared in anthologies and literary magazines, including Room Magazine, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and the Globe and Mail. Her editorial work on books, parenting, culture, and politics have appeared in numerous publications, including CBC, Today's Parent, Canadian Living Magazine, Canadian Family Magazine, and many others. She wrote the award-winning parenting blog, The Kids Are All Right, from 2005 to 2016, and is the author of 2 books for very young readers, published by Fisher-Price. Prior to her move to Chatham in 2011, Karen was a writer for a Toronto-based record company for more than 10 years, contributing to Juno Award-winning and platinum-selling albums. She attended York University for creative writing, has a publishing certificate from George Brown College, and attended the Humber College Summer Creative Writing Workshop. Yellowbirds, released earlier this year from Rebooks Publishing, is Karen's first novel. Set just before the digital revolution, it follows a young woman named Kate as she joins a group of people following an iconic band as they travel on tour from town to town. Against the chaotic backdrop of life on the road, Kate meets a fellow traveler with a dark past, and an unexpected love story begins as the two continue on the journey to the next shows together until tragedy strikes, and the pair must first reckon with the lives that they have left behind. Yellowbirds has earned a Kirkus Star, is a finalist for the American Book Fest Best Book Awards, and has appeared on several Best of 2024 reading lists. Karen is already editing her next book and is grateful that the move to Chatham has given her the time and space to pursue her craft. I'd like to recognize Karen Green.
Thank you, Councillor Finn. When looking for a passage to read from, I realized that my book is probably best described as unfiltered, but I think there's a few pages at the beginning of the novel that will do for tonight, so I'm going to start reading there. In the end, I chose Kate. The important thing was that it was spelled with an I, not that it would matter, since we never had much of a reason to write our names down. And if anybody was going to write to me, they would no doubt spell it Kate, the conventional way, with an E. But every time I told somebody that my name was Kate, I could picture the word in a pretty scroll just above my head, feminine and lilting and original with an I, not hard and squared off and ordinary. Kate. I could have gone with anything, aura or aurora, or something even more rainbow, like pixie or atlas or love or sunshine or rainbow. Most people's rainbow name sounded like it was inspired by an acid trip or a weather report, but I didn't want a crazy hippie name, just a name, a new name. And really, I didn't even know I wanted a new name until I said it. I was in Eugene, Oregon, which is probably the rainbow name capital of the world. I had made it to Eugene after a 4-day stretch of travel with a couple from North Carolina named, remarkably, Nick and Nicole, and who each seemed wonderful on their own and did nothing but argue and harp at each other when they were together. And there was nowhere to be but together as we drove through the vast Midwest and over the Rockies for 4 days in a white Honda Civic covered in open road stickers and dead bugs. My only reprieve was when we stopped at night to camp and I could unroll my sleeping bag as far from the unhappy couple as possible. My first show that summer had been with schoolmates a couple of weeks earlier. We were only going to be gone 5 days, but I had overstuffed my backpack, unsure of what I should wear, what I would need, or with whom I might end up. Getting out of the car in Pine Knob, Michigan, and walking through the field, which is what the parking lots were called when the Yellowbirds took over, I was instantly happy and overwhelmed. Trying to get my bearings, I stood and watched as the most interesting and vibrant-looking people I had ever seen rolled by in a constant technicolor stream of tie-dye and patchwork. A parade of people with long skirts, long hair, rainbow dreads falling out of crocheted tams, bare feet, and scraggly dogs on leashes. There were normal-looking people, too, in jeans and crisp T-shirts, but I barely glanced at them, enthralled by the freaks and hippies that seemed so grounded and comfortable they must have grown straight out of the earth they were standing on. I looked down at the band T-shirt, jean shorts, and Birkenstocks I had on and felt like I was wearing someone else's clothes. I rubbed the scar that marked the back of my left arm, a habit since I had acquired it in a car accident the year before. My hair in a neat and practical ponytail to keep the heat of it off of my neck made me feel juvenile and unstylish. I pulled the elastic and shook out my waves, heat be damned. I explored the field before the show and I tried to take it all in, this impossible spectacle of sights and sounds and smells. We made it to Main Street, which is what the thoroughfare of vendors that set up in the field was called. Main Street was where you went to buy food and all the things people were selling. T-shirts and jewelry and clothing, and art and purses and lyric books and posters and kites, and it was kind of like the heart of a farmer's market or international bazaar, and it radiated out in makeshift arteries from there. Music came from everywhere, from guitars, from speakers, from people singing. Every vehicle or stand or set-up shop in the field had its own microenvironment with goods and people and smells and a unique soundtrack of activity, but linked together, they created a harmonious ecosystem. It was a hive of constant sensory engagement, but it avoided being chaotic, as each person here seemed to understand exactly where the thin boundary between order and anarchy existed. One could sustain this unconventional community, make it flourish, and one could make it disappear quickly under the nearby hand of authority. I wanted the perfect impermanence of Open Road Tour for as long as I could have it. When the trip to see 3 shows in 5 days was over, I said goodbye to my school chums and went on to Eugene with the North Carolinian Squabblers. Birds weren't just fans of the open road, they were the ambassadors, the insiders. I was just beginning to learn the secret language, the hidden code the Yellowbirds all seemed to share, but it didn't take long to figure out that getting to shows and helping other birds get to shows was part of that code. I would not have considered myself a Yellowbird only weeks earlier, but in my desire to stay on Open Road Tour, to only move forward, I learned enough of the language to pass for one, and the longer I stayed on tour, the more fluent I became. Pulling into Eugene, Oregon, as Nick and Nicole argued over whether or not there was time for a Target grocery run, the only words I could say were, "Get me out of here." The West Coast leg of summer tour was about to begin, and I was thousands of miles from where I began without a plan, a ride, or even a place to drop my small bundle of belongings. I was starting to think I should have just gone home, while home still seemed like an option for me. And then I crossed paths with Skate and Easy and Vivi, and I hoped they were my answer. And then I met Eartha, and that was that. "Well, aren't you new and shiny?" said Eartha in the way that I would come to know as affectionate. "I'm Eartha." "I'm Kate," I said, and then I was. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for choosing Chatham-Kent to call home. So we're thrilled to have you here and to recognize you and all the amazing stuff that you've done historically and continue to look forward to following your career as you continue doing what you're doing. So thank you.
The next recognition that we have this evening is recognition of the Employment and Social Services and Chatham-Kent Public Library Community Volunteer Income Tax Programs. If I could call staff up now, and I'll also call Jody up to speak to the recognition.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, Council, members of the public. It is my great honor and pleasure tonight to recognize staff within the Employment and Social Services Division and both staff and volunteers with Chatham-Kent Public Library for their involvement with Canada Revenue Agency's Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. Each year, through this program, organizations and volunteers help community members file their income tax and benefit returns so that they receive the benefits and credits to which they are entitled. This program allows low-income individuals from diverse backgrounds across Chatham-Kent to access important financial benefits which help reduce the impacts of poverty by providing funds to cover essential expenses such as housing, food, and other essential needs. Both the Employment and Social Services and Chatham-Kent Public Library programs received a Certificate of Appreciation from the Honourable Marie-Claude Bibeau, Minister of National Revenue, in recognition of their outstanding partnership with the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program during the 2024 tax filing season. Tonight, we recognize the important contributions these programs bring to our community. So just a little bit about each of the programs. Employment and Social Services operates the Community Navigator program out of municipal library branches and the Victoria Park Place, ensuring that community members are able to access government, social, and health services. As part of this program, the Community Navigators assist eligible low-income residents with the completion of simple income tax returns year-round. Throughout 2024, the Community Navigators supported 493 residents with the completion of income tax returns, which provided those residents with more than $2.3 million in financial benefits. Congratulations, that is absolutely incredible. Staff here from Employment and Social Services are being recognized tonight for their work. Matt Keach, our Program Manager in Employment and Social Services, has a Certificate of Appreciation and recognition for each of you. Cami Moore, Kathy Young, Jocelyn Toffelmeyer, Kelly Bowers, Lori Dilliot, Mary Lynn Pickering, and Shaylin Sewell. I want to talk just for a moment about the Chatham-Kent Public Library program. The library coordinates volunteer income tax clinics in March and April of each year. And this program works in partnership with the Community Navigator program to help meet the community need of individuals who might not otherwise complete their income tax returns. In 2024, 383 community members were served through Chatham-Kent Public Library's tax clinics. Congratulations to each and every one of you. Your efforts are sincerely appreciated. Heidi Wyma, CEO and Chief Librarian for our library system, has some certificates as well to offer. I'm just going to call out the names. I know that not everybody is here from our staff and volunteers, but I want to recognize each of them. Amy Osborne, Cindy Cowell, Deb Redding, Jessica DeFelio, Julie Jacobs, Megan Cohen, Michelle Sims, and Stacy Vandal Bazinson. Sorry, Stacy. The volunteer tax preparers being recognized tonight include Amber Vander Riviere and the team at Enbridge, Dan DeVolder, Gary MacDonald, Jill Miner, Josh Charles, Kelly Ladd, Nick Bond, and Tahir Shah. Thank you so much for all of your contributions. Very much appreciated. I'd like to once again congratulate the staff of Employment and Social Services, the Chatham-Kent Public Library staff, and the volunteers for the work that you do in delivering the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. You truly do make a difference in people's lives. Mayor Kniff?
Jody, you said virtually everything I wanted to say, but I think about it. When tax time comes around, how many of us start clamoring, saying, gee, I can't wait till I get to file my tax return and do it. So these individuals step up and do tax returns for nearly 900 people that otherwise would not be able to do it. Over $2.3 million. they bring into the community to help those individuals. And you're giving of your time. So you spent how many hours doing it? You spent time getting ready for it afterwards. So I want to thank you for that. You're an amazing example of why Chatham-Kent is so special. People stepping up, they don't need to otherwise, but you stepped up and said there's a need in the community and I want to help people. So thank you so much for that. And I'm thrilled tonight that we're able to recognize you for what you've done.
Next, we'll move on to the deputations for this evening. We have 6 deputations. The first one was email only, and that was with regards to item 20B, the motion of Councillor Sakachi regarding support for primary care access points and physician recruitment. That was received by Rob Watson. We'll now move on to 5 deputations received to speak this evening. I'll remind all 5 speakers that you have a maximum of 5 minutes, and the timer will be on the screen for your guidance. All items are with regards to item 21B, Hope Haven Winter Warming Center. We'll start with Renee Giannoli. On deck will be Julie McLaughlin.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all. My name is Renee Giannoli, and I'm the Executive Director at Reach Out Chatham-Kent, ROC, an organization that supports those experiencing houselessness for those who are not familiar with us yet. I chose to do a deputation tonight to support Kim Crew's motion to expand hours at Hope Haven to provide our community with an overnight warming center. This year has shown unprecedented numbers of people living outdoors, with rough counts being as high as 100 individuals. There are anywhere between 8 to 12 encampment locations, which we visit regularly, with our friends living in the hardest of situations. And then comes winter, which we never seem to be completely ready for. We have had many conversations with many people asking, what will they do? Or what will you guys do? And the answer until now has been, I don't know. Council approving this motion at the bare minimum gives people an option. Differing ideologies aside, when we adopt a person-centered attitude and our true motives are to serve the people, finding people somewhere to be inside during the coldest of nights is the best option to potentially save lives. ROC is committed to continuing our encampment supports and to serving some of our hardest to serve citizens. And if this funding is approved, we will add consistent messaging and transportation to everyone outdoors who may decide to take advantage of this safe space to our roster of activities. While we all wait for higher level systemic changes to occur, as people just caring about people, we can share our commitment to being that community whose moral and ethical bottom line does not waver. This is a temporary solution that takes some pressure off and allows people a lifeline that we weren't going to be able to offer before now. Once again, I encourage you all to use a person-centered approach in your decision-making and show our community that all of our community members' safety comes first. And thank you again.
Thank you. Next speaker is Julie McLaughlin. On deck is Justin Lucas.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and all that is listening in this dwelling. In advance, wishing everyone a beautiful Christmas and a very Merry New Year. I want to thank Hope Haven for allowing me to speak on keeping Hope Haven open at nighttime during the winter months. My warm wishes for all those like myself with no family or home. If it were not for Hope Haven and a few other places who have helped, continue to help, with one exception, Hope Haven is a place where keeping warm at night means the difference between, in some cases, life or death, in which they help use to afford the basic things in life most take granted: of food, warmth, a place to stay for a few hours, laundry, conversation, warm clothes, advice, and so many other things. Now close your eyes and imagine no food, no warm clothes, no money, nothing to drink, no shelter, and if you do, that wind and cold still manages to make it every inch of your body hurt from the temperature that are felt during winter. If it is too cold for animals, there is a place they can be turned in to protect them. Then why do we need to debate why Hope Haven should be open during winter months? Simple. It is basic human rights to be in a place where it is warm. Now imagine your toes, your hands, your face, your entire body in pain. You can move around, but still, it doesn't take the cold away. As once the dampness is felt, then you are done. Imagine anyone you knew turn you away, do not want to help or cannot. Sleeping behind dumpsters, doorways, tents, parks, benches, under bridges, and in vehicles will not stop hypothermia. Hypothermia to help keep energy in your body. Hope Haven supplies all that is needed to keep energy, warmth, to help keep us healthy. Now imagine trying to fall asleep while no feeling in your extremities and in your mind. Are you going to wake up? If you don't, are you going to die alone? Will I be discovered in an hour or days? Praying that the winter flies by so you don't have to think about the months of freezing temperatures. Not being exposed to hypothermia, possibly every winter night. As those who are very lucky and blessed to have a warm home, preparing for Christmas with their loved ones, we try and prepare to stay alive. Addiction, so many other things we face every night make our mental issues even worse than necessary. This is another reason why Hope Haven should remain open in the winter months at night. We are not throwaways. We are not garbage. We are human beings, like everyone in this room, who deserves the basic needs: warm place to sleep, food. So tonight, when you go home and talk to your children or your grandchildren, or even look in the mirror, ask yourself, how can you even think that anything less than absolutely keep Hope Haven open during winter at nights? There is absolutely should not be any other answer. Thank you, Mayor, Council members, and all those who come out to support Hope Haven. God bless and good night.
Thank you. Next speaker is Justin Lucas. On deck is Ray Turcott.
Oh, boy. Hi, my name is Justin. I'd like to start by thanking everybody who appeared here tonight. Thank you for your time and everything. I've written something here, but to be honest, what she said is kind of what I'm gonna say, and she's kind of the reason why we should keep it open. She was sleeping in her vehicle, and she kind of toughed it out. And lately, just going off the script here, I've wondered how many people can do it. How many people can go without dinner every night, or medicine, or attention, or conversation? How many hours I spend just alone talking to myself? And I'm not crazy. I'm not addicted to drugs, right? I'm gonna go on the script now. Thank you. My name is Justin, and I'm an unhoused citizen of Chatham-Kent. I've been asked to give my perspective on the issue at hand that's keeping Hope Haven open throughout the winter months. I'd like to take this chance to thank everyone here tonight for their time and understanding. For what I can tell, the issue boils down to why Hope Haven is an essential service to our municipality. Well, Hope Haven offers the people in Chatham-Kent who are the most at risk a place to stabilize, like me. Homelessness and transients are a delicate and sensitive issue to deal with, and the clearer path back to stability, the clearer the path back is to stability, the easier it is for us all who experience homelessness to escape it. Hope Haven is a place for people to come together, just put simply. Just give me one moment. To lift each other up together. This is not an easy thing to do. This is not an easy thing to accomplish, but we've done it together. The people who make Hope Haven possible, the staff, the guests, the volunteers, the people who donate, they do so with care and conscientiousness in their hearts to support our local community in a caring, giving, and safe way, because we all come from different backgrounds, right? We all have different ways of looking at things, and we might have a different opinion of what should be done. But to be able to make new connections and be able to help new people, not just the people they've helped me, they've helped you. We're gonna need more resources. The issue only seems to get worse, even though I've stabilized and continue to get better. I've seen younger and older go out in colder weather. So we need to take this time to talk about the hard issue at hand, the essentials. So let's talk about resources. It's my opinion, and it's just my opinion. I'm not trying to offend anybody. The resources allotted to Hope Haven are used in a fair and responsible way. I've seen it. They make it stretch. They make the money work. I'd like to thank them for being excellent custodians of our public money and trust. And now it's needed more than ever. It's a lot to ask, I know. That's true. But it's also true that the lives of people of Chatham-Kent are important, and guarding their safety, their dignity, their self-worth is worth investing into now more than ever. Once again, thank you, Justin Lucas.
Thank you. Next speaker is Ray Turcott. On deck is Laura Wheeler.
To the mayor, council members, and guests, my name is Raymond Turcott. I've been a resident in Chatham-Kent for about 6.5 years now. To give you a bit of a background, I was born in the province of Quebec and lived there 23 years of my life, and then I moved to Ontario, and I've been here ever since. I lived in Toronto, I lived in London, and now I'm in Chatham-Kent. The reason why I moved every time is because my addiction, and I figured that if I move somewhere where I know there is a jungle, but I don't know anybody in the jungle, I stay away, I cure my addiction. Now, I grew up in a little village, a town, 2,000 people, and I realized that when you live in a small community, there's a lot of people know you every day and you know everybody else. But when I lost my dad, I was 10 years old, and I noticed that the community grouped around us to help us because we own the business. And when I moved to Montreal, I lost that. And then I moved to Toronto. And then I moved to London. And these were all bigger communities. And the thing that was, when I was in Ontario, because my dad was born in Ontario, I always looked at, see if I see my last name, if they own a business or something like that. But when it comes to my mom, she was born in Quebec. I never saw her maiden name until I came here. And her last name is Grenier. And I saw that, and I thought, this is a good place for me, because I don't have brothers and sisters, and I'm on my own. And I lived with a lady for 5.5 years, and she got hurt, and they wanted to put her in a home, and then I lost my place. So then I ended up going to the shelter. I was there for a while, and thank God for the shelter. But things didn't work out, and then I was out since June, and I stayed with a few other people, but things didn't work out again. And just recently, thank God that shelter's open, because I didn't know what I was going to do. Because I'm 62 years old. I got hepatitis C. I'm going through some medical reasons too, and I never been arrested, and the thought went through my mind just to get shelter, and that's awful to feel to think of that. And if it wasn't for her being there for me, it'd be like I was lost because I didn't know nobody, right? So it's like, and these people are there for me, and on the weekend, last weekend, I spent the weekend at the hospital because I was so frozen, and I found an excuse just so I could stay there. But I can't keep doing that forever, right? So it's very important for a person like me at my age, right, that Hope Haven stays open, and that, I know things are tough for everybody, and it's just that, and this town has done a lot of good for not just Hope Haven, a lot of other organizations that are helping me also. So I thank God for that. And it's nice that when you're walking down the street, you see a different face and they recognize your face. Even though they don't know your name, it's a nice feeling. I feel like I'm back home when I was a kid again. So I think it's very important that they stay open during the winter months at least, and give everybody a chance to have at least a place to stay when it's really, really cold. So I want to thank you once again, and I want you to all have a nice holiday season. And I guess I'm like Archie Bunker. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's.
Thank you. The last deputation is Laura Wheeler.
Good evening. My name is Laura Wheeler, and I am a representative from the Chatham-Kent to the Power of Young People Advisory Group, where I have been a member since its inception in 2018. Our group's purpose is to facilitate discussions among young people and provide feedback to municipal administration, council, and community organizations. Over the past 6 years, the CKY Advisory Group has worked toward creating a community where the voice and opinions of young people are heard, valued, and represented within municipal government. On behalf of the CKY Advisory Group, I am here tonight to support the recommendation from Municipal Administration for Chatham Hope Haven to expand winter warming services from December 1st to February 28th of 2025. The 2022 CKY survey of young people identified homelessness as one of the top 10 key items young people wish for council to address. We know that through data and personal experiences within our community, this problem is not improving. A news article from CK News Today identified 96 people as experiencing homelessness in 2018, compared to over 200 from a September 2024 article in CTV News. This drastic spike in numbers among the unhoused population is heartbreaking, especially within a community like Chatham-Kent that has so much to offer. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a widely accepted theory of psychology, identifies 6 basic needs that all humans require for survival. These are air, food, water, shelter, clothing, and sleep. Hope Haven is a crucial proponent of 5 of these needs to many individuals who are members of the Chatham-Kent community. When we conclude this meeting tonight, my assumption is that many of us will drive back to a warm home with running water and food at our disposal. These basic needs should not be seen as a privilege. As this extended service will be 100% provincially funded from the existing homeless prevention program budget, we urge council to please vote in favor of expanded winter warming services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. The following items have been pulled. Item 16A, the motion by Councillor Carmen McGregor regarding motion to support basic income guarantee for Canadians. It's pulled by Councillor Carmen McGregor, Councillor Jubenville, and Councillor Doyle. Item 16B, motion of Councillor Brock McGregor regarding access to federal funding for encampments and homelessness was pulled by Councillor Brock McGregor. Item 16C, motion by Councillor Story ensuring access for all residents to the Chatham-Kent Community Hub, pulled by Councillor Story and Councillor Harrigan. Item 17A, Entegrus and an annual general meeting. There is a presentation by administration. Item 20B, motion of Councillor Sakachi regarding support for primary access points and physician recruitment, pulled by Councillor Sakachi, Councillor Harrigan, Councillor McGrail, and Councillor Story. Item 21B, Hope Haven Winter Warming Center, pulled by Councillor Story. Item 23C, the traffic and parking bylaw update for subdivisions in Chatham-Kent, pulled by Councillor Bondi and Councillor Doyle. And there is one more, sorry, I missed it here. Item 22A, the mutual aid agreements, is pulled by Councillor Jubenville, sorry. The following reports will be left on the consent agenda to be voted by one motion. Item 14A, B, item 15A, B, C, and D, item 18A, 19A, 20A, 21A and C, 22B, 23A, B, and 24A.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Doyle, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff.
Happy to second that.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Item 16. Items postponed from the November 18th, 2024 council meeting.
16A, motion by Councillor Carmen McGregor regarding motion to support basic income guarantee for Canadians.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor. It's a fairly lengthy motion, so I'll just read the whereas in my request. And therefore, it be resolved that Mayor and Council of the Municipality of Chatham-Kent support the advocacy of the Chatham-Kent Food Policy Council in support of a basic income guarantee and the passage of Senate Bill S-233, and that the Mayor create a resolution requesting action based on the motion to be sent to the federal government, and the resolution with a request for support be sent to the FCM to distribute to all municipalities in Canada. And can I continue on, or?
I'm just going to get a seconder for that, Councillor Crew. Okay, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. The reasoning behind the motion that I've brought from the CK Food Policy Council is that a basic income guarantee for Canadians would be instrumental in addressing social determinants of health and would have a far greater impact on well-being than the ever-growing cost of health care and municipal supports.
The Senate is currently studying Bill S-233 that was introduced by Senator Kim Pate in 2021 to create a national framework for guaranteed livable basic income. If passed, the bill would require the Minister of Finance to develop a national framework to provide everyone over the age of 17 with access to a guaranteed basic livable income. The recent emergency response benefit for workers directly affected by COVID-19 showed that the country has the infrastructure and the ability to design a program quickly and respond to the economic needs. I believe that we can afford guaranteed basic income. What we can't afford is the health costs and the continually abandoning people to poverty and homelessness. There are increasing numbers of people that are being left behind, and we need to provide them with support which will allow them to fully function as citizens in our society. A basic guaranteed income provided by the federal government would work alongside other key social supports and programs, such as those related to health care, housing affordability, labor protection, and access to education. More people struggle to keep a roof over their head and food on their plates, and the time has come for our government to introduce a basic guaranteed livable income, allowing for people to provide for themselves and to cover the basic needs, which in turn will allow them to be fully engaged in society. Although this request specifically has not come before council, previous councils have passed motions in which the provincial government has been asked to support efforts that address social and economic issues, including the interest in increase to social assistance rates. Our administration supports all initiatives that enhance social health and economic prosperity, including the notion of a basic income. I hope that council this evening will also support the initiative of the motion. In closing, I would like to thank all the members of my Food Policy Council, our administrative support, Sharmini Balkrishnan, hopefully I said that correct, Sharmini, and our members, Renee Junot and Susan Fulmer, for their deputations at the past meeting. And I would also like to recognize Karen Green, who is here tonight. There she is over there, is also a member of our Food Policy Council and contributes greatly. So thank you, and I ask for your support tonight.
Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Jubenville.
I don't have any comments, Mr. Mayor. I as well agree with everything Councillor McGregor said, and I hope that everyone supports this.
Councillor Jubenville, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. While I appreciate and understand the intentions of this motion, I respectfully will not be supporting it, and I just want to explain why. Right now, our federal debt is over $1 trillion. So at what point do we print more money? Do we borrow money? And then this will inevitably devalue our Canadian dollar. We do have many programs, social assistance programs, in effect right now, and we should be utilizing them. We are basically asking the federal government to tax us even more to sustain this program in order to have the money to give to the recipients. Instead of this, where are the incentives to get people out working instead of free handouts of money? We have to ask ourselves, is financial security, is it a birthright, or is it something that we should be earning? Basic income would lead to a shrinking labor force, which would harm our economy and the growth in our country, and it has been sparsely tested in Canada. According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the cost of a universal basic income would start at $85 billion a year and rise to $93 billion by 2026. This would require an increase in personal income taxes by almost 50% by tripling the GST. For real-life example purposes, the recently announced $250 refund check that Canadians will be receiving is expected to cost the federal government $4.68 billion and more if the eligibility expands and if it is passed. While the GST holiday that is being implemented is anticipated to result in a $1.6 billion lost tax revenue, where does it end? Our hardworking Canadians only have so much money to give up in taxes without going behind financially ourselves. Being a fiscal conservative myself, I believe that well-paying jobs and lower taxes are the best way to improve the personal financial security of all Canadians. Universal basic income is a risky and relatively unknown experiment which could have a large and negative impact on our society and our economy. Thank you.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll say some thoughts probably similar to Councillor Jubenville. I do think Councillor McGregor, your heart is probably in the right place for this. There's definitely people out there that need financial support, need more financial support and help. But I would be more inclined to support increasing social assistance and some of the programs that we already have, or to tax people a little less that need help than going to a universal basic income program. I would say, so I'm an insurance broker, and when we had CERB, when CERB was given out to people, the amount of small business owners that I talked to that couldn't find workers because they were sitting at home on CERB, on the free money that they're getting, was crazy. And I even had people that, like owners of businesses, that said that people would come in to do an interview, and I don't know if it was all CERB or some EI, but they would say they'd come in to do an interview and say, I'm not taking this job, I'm just here so I can show that I'm looking for a job. So the amount of people that abuse CERB, and there was an article in the paper last week, I think, about the amount of businesses that also abuse CERB that didn't have the access, or shouldn't have taken the money, that did. To me, if we go to a universal basic income program, that would almost be like a CERB 2.0. And I think even though it is going to help people, the secondary effects of the tax increases that we're going to have, the roughly $88 billion, which is a 2022, 2023 number, like the money needs to come from somewhere. So how many people, if they have to raise taxes, how many people that are just on the borderline of being homeless, is that now going to push into homelessness? And then now is that going to just raise our taxes even more, because now we're going to have to support more people on it? So although I do think it's, like I said, in the heart, you're in the right spot. I think there's more we can do, but I can't support a universal basic income program. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Actually, I kind of have a question. I've heard of this basic income guarantee. It's been floated in the United States, Canada. So my question is, what does it mean? Because I'm reading here, regardless of employment status. So sorry, I'm not very fluent in this program, and to the mover, does this mean that everybody just gets, like, say, $25,000 a year, even if you're a neurosurgeon? Like, I don't get what, honestly, I'm not trying to, trip you up. I don't really understand it.
Can I? Yes, please. Thanks. And no, it's a basic guaranteed income. So if you're making $15 an hour, then you would get an increase up to whatever the basic income level is. If you're already making over that, you're obviously not going to qualify for a basic guaranteed income. The purpose of it is to raise people up to a certain level so that they can afford to buy food, so they can afford to buy clothing. I sent all of you a report this weekend that showed the costing of rent and food for the basic household in different numbers within an email that I sent you, a report that went to our Board of Health regarding the food basket and in food insecurity that exists within Chatham-Kent. So basically, if you're on social service payments, then that would raise to a basic income level, a guaranteed level. If you are in a situation that you are working, say, with Hope Haven, they would be able to get you directed in to a program so that you could get a basic income, so that you could afford clothing to put on your back, so that you could afford food. And it would also give you the dignity of being able to do that and being a part of community. Those would lift you up and also allow you into possible spots of education that eventually would probably turn around and allow you to become productive within the community. What it is it's a basic income. So no, it does not go to every person. And you know, if we look at it, you know, maybe the federal government is not paying for it at this point in time, but we are paying for it. We are all paying for it through all of our programs. Having that program wouldn't be added on to other programs. It would have to be worked that it is a part of the overall program for Canadians, so that everybody has that basic level of income to start off with to do that. And this has been tried. It has been tried in communities across Ontario, actually with very great success. And it was, at that point, it was stopped, or they'd finished their program because of COVID. But it was actually tried and was very successful in many communities. One of them being, I think, Hamilton, and then I think there was one on the East Coast. I'd have to go back into my information to get you those communities, but it was very successful when it was tried. So, you know, I think that you know, I hope that answers your question, because
Oh,
I
it
think
more
there's
than
a few
answers my
other.
question.
Sorry.
It's my
Sorry.
turn, right?
It was almost my closing remarks, so I'll cut back there.
Okay, thanks. No, I guess I understand it better than I did. So I would just wonder why we wouldn't raise minimum wage, increase, what do we call it now, Ontario Works? Like, it just seems like it's a handout. So why have
And
minimum?
it's
Sorry,
not, it's a basic level.
because this is a concept we're talking about. Like, we're not saying do exactly this. The concept is that there's 1,000 different details we work on. I don't want to debate tonight all the exact details. This is a concept to say we support the concept, the government to look at it, and versus no, we don't want the government to look at it.
Okay, but it's kind of hard to vote on if I don't understand what I'm voting on.
But it's the concept, because there's no way we have to get all the details and debate every detail in it, because I don't think they know all the details on it, so.
Okay, well, I don't think I can support something that I can't get answers to, so, all right, we'll leave it there. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to point out that as a council, we just heard some deputations from some really vulnerable people in our community who have shared with us some of the strategies that they have undertaken to survive the winter. Not to avoid a job that they don't want to do, not to live a more comfortable lifestyle, to eat, to stay warm and not freeze overnight, to be able to wake up tomorrow morning. And quite frankly, if we think about universal income and the existence of universal income, it's quite possible that all of those individuals who bravely shared their stories with members of council would not be in this precarious position. Universal basic income, when you look at the numbers of it, is actually just raising social assistance to a value that people deserve to receive on a monthly basis. It offers individuals the opportunities to fulfill their basic necessities, not to buy a PS5 or to hang out and watch TV all day, because it certainly won't afford you cable or any sort of streaming devices. Arguably, universal basic income allows us to invest in people achieving their goals so that we don't have to spend copious amounts of money in the healthcare system, in social services systems, when people are in emergency situations, which ultimately cost more. The UNESCO branch of the United Nations Innovation Policy Lab, which is a nonpartisan international organization generally thought to provide good research and to give good evidence policy-based comments, did a research study on Ontario's universal basic income pilot. Overall, findings suggested that well-being improved for those on basic incomes across a variety of metrics. People ate better, 86% of them actually. They went without food less often, almost 3/4 of them. Almost half reported living in better accommodations and were more able to afford essential household items at a rate of 85% and clothing at a rate of 86%. So imagine if everybody here was told you had to leave your winter coats at the door and spend the rest of the week hanging out without basic clothing. as Mayor Caniff mentioned, we are not debating as to whether or not universal income program should exist here in Chatham-Kent. We are deciding if, as a council, we are going to support our Board of Health, we are going to support our Food Policy Council in the work that they have done to ensure that, and to make a stand to say, we believe people should have basic necessities at a higher level than what they are currently receiving. And whether or not in your mind that is people should get more Ontario Works or we're going to package it as universal basic income, I think what we need to ask ourselves is the basic governance necessities enough for people? And I would say resoundingly in Chatham-Kent, we have seen that the answer to that question is no. You can just look across the Thames River and see some of the vulnerabilities that people are in. So I know that it is tempting. I know that different provincial and federal political parties take different stances on this, but we're here in Chatham-Kent, and we need to make decisions about our neighbors in Chatham-Kent and really try to set partisan politics aside when we're making this decision. So I know that those deputations tonight were based on Hope Haven's warming shelter, but I couldn't help but think of all of those comments when Councillor McGregor was giving us the reasons for why we should support universal income. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Certainly agree with Councillor Harrigan's comments. And I think I view the motion very much in the same way, that this is another opportunity for us as a council to recognize that right now in Ontario, people are legislated into poverty. And the cost of legislating people into poverty is a significant societal cost, and it's a significant financial cost. It's a cost to the healthcare system. It's a cost to municipalities when it comes to emergency housing. And if this can be another portion of a message that says we need to do better, I think we should support that. And I think when we talk about the financial realities of Canada, and the comments we'll hear about support during the pandemic, I think it's important to note that in 2020, the 20 richest people in Canada or in Ontario saw their wealth increase. I'll look at it here because it's astonishing, by $37 billion. So some people did really well through the pandemic, and others have been left very vulnerable. And I think that we need to recognize that and continue to send a message that municipalities are bearing significant costs from this crisis, that we need other levels of government to be innovative and to look at solutions to lift people out of poverty. So I hope that we support this tonight, and I hope that in the future we see changes to assistance rates in our communities to address what is a very real crisis.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I found a quote online from Hamilton, who was part of the UBI pilot project, and I think it might help frame the concept. So when it comes to universal basic income, this is something we already do in Canada through guaranteed income supplement for seniors and the child tax benefit for parents. It's been a massive success for decades in supporting seniors and families with children with incredible benefits to the economy and communities, and I think this would do the same. So I just wanted to share my support for that.
Okay, back to you, Councillor C. McGregor, for final words.
Thank you, and thank you for all the comments, regardless of your, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Finn,
ahead,
I apologize for missing you. Sorry.
It's okay. I was just going to show support. Living in the area I do, I know many people that they work part-time jobs because nobody will hire them full-time. They couldn't afford to go to college or university because they had a young family. So it was a decision to work, do what they could to survive. Places have been bought up. They've had to move. People who were paying $800 a month for rent are now paying $1,700 plus. And they're having to make a decision on whether they pay for bills and provide a roof or buy food or clothing. It's tough, and it's not by choice on a lot of these people. So to say that people aren't willing to work, they are. It's circumstances that, as we've heard tonight, circumstances in life that have put a roadblock in their way, and I think it's a great idea. It gives some people some pride in their life and may change somebody's life. So I'm in full support.
I'm going to sneak over to Councillor Crew, the seconder, and then Councillor C. McGregor, back to you.
Thank you. I just have, I agree with some of my co-councillors here, but I just want to give you some numbers. A single person on Ontario Works gets $733 a month. Like Councillor Finn just said, rent's average about, a low-income rent is about $1,700. Of that $733, $390 of that is for your rent. Good luck, folks. So this is not stopping people from working or giving them money that they don't have a better use for. But this is just supporting. Don't think we don't support them, because we are doing the shelter funding and all of those things that the province should be already doing. So I'm not going to get on that soapbox, but I will support it. I just wanted you to understand those numbers.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and thank you for those comments. I was just going to point those numbers out. So again, my motion and what my ask is tonight is that you support the advocacy of the Food Policy Council and the Board of Health, and that we ask the Mayor to do a resolution requesting support and for the resolution to be sent to the federal government and to the FCM to distribute to the municipalities across Canada. I'm not asking you to approve a basic income guarantee. I am asking for your support to help get the message across and continue the lobbying and continue the pressure so that we can, in the end, be able to help those that need help the most. Thank you.
With that, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-3. Next item, 16B, motion by Councillor Brock McGregor regarding access to federal funding for encampments and homelessness.
Councillor B. McGregor. Motion, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The motion is that Council endorse a request for funding to Sean Fraser, Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, to access funding from the 2024 federal budget earmarked to address encampments and homelessness, and currently unavailable due to a lack of cooperation and action by the province of Ontario.
I'll give you the floor. Just get a seconder for that. Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you. So this is a fairly simple, actionable item that I think relates to a lot of the issues we're talking about tonight, and I think is one of those unfortunate examples when politics gets in the way of helping people. So there's a very significant fund available from the federal government, earmarked exactly to help with homelessness and encampments. Communities in Ontario are unable to access that fund right now because the province of Ontario has not signed an agreement. Sean Fraser, Minister of Housing, has mentioned he will step around the provincial government and work directly with municipalities. I think the intention is to work with some larger municipalities, but I hope that Chatham-Kent, with our significant need here, can make a case that we should be part of this program as well, and do our best to access funding to help those vulnerable people in our community. Thank you.
Councillor C. McGregor.
I really can't say it any better than that. It does dovetail on a lot of the conversation we've had tonight, and this is just another method in getting the lobbying or getting the message out that help is needed. Help is needed, and if we don't fight for it, who is going to fight for it? Thanks.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. Item 16C, motion by Councillor Story regarding ensuring access for all residents to the Chatham-Kent Community Hub.
Councillor Story, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Third time's the charm, I hope, tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to review this motion and discuss it with council. I don't think I need to review all of the items, but when can I speak to the motion? Sorry, for a procedural piece?
The floor is yours to speak
Great.
about it right now.
Thank you very much. Just make sure I'm doing this properly. Also last...
Sorry, I apologize. Sorry, yes. Councillor Harrigan, could you just put on the floor, please?
Yeah, happy to second.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The ironic note with the timing is actually that last week was International Day of Persons with Disabilities, so actually this lines up well. The main reason why I brought this motion forward, just the two main concerns that underpin why this was brought forward by me and with support of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, was that there's an estimated 25,000 people in Chatham-Kent with an identified disability, and that equals about 1 in 4 people in our population, and that the accessibility legislation as it currently stands in Ontario has not been updated in about 20 years. It's supposed to be updated next year, but what we're hearing is that that is not necessarily forthcoming. And that legislation really does not cover the vast majority of barriers that people with disabilities face. So we just wanted to make sure that this was really front and center as we enter into the next phase of this planning for if we do move to the downtown hub at the old Sears building. I also want to mention that accessibility and age-friendly design are an important part of our council priorities under the promote community safety and well-being, and as well as our core values as an employer. I just wanted to thank, we can harken back to over a month ago, but the Accessibility Advisory Committee, I'll just call them the AAC, but the chair, Sarah Eber, volunteers and municipal staff have all dedicated countless hours to making our community more accessible and welcoming to all, especially when it comes to this proposal. And we had several deputations that night. The AAC also did send council a letter supporting the motion, that was over a month ago, so just wanted to remind us of that. There was also great discussion that night at council. And I also wanted to thank Janice and Ashley, who gave in-person deputations, and everyone else who reached out to me. And I also want to thank Mayor Caniff to appointing me to this committee, because I never really imagined how much I would learn and how meaningful this work would be. So the AAC has provided an important feedback on this proposal to date, and as we enter a new phase with new information, I think their input is more important than ever. And this motion captures what the committee would like to see in this detailed design phase, and that what they'd like to see is listed out in the motion. They don't want to see a proposal that simply meets the accessibility legislation, because as I mentioned, that does not cover the vast majority of barriers that people with disabilities face. And when the barriers are addressed in that legislation, they're very vague, and enforcement of that legislation is paltry. We can do better than that. I think we must do better than that. We can and should be a leader in that, and ensuring that those voices, like those of the AAC, seniors, and other relevant groups, are part of that work. They are heard, and they can also hold all of us accountable. And I think we should welcome and invite their participation to ensure that if this proposal moves ahead, it is really a shining example of what a municipal facility can be and what it should be, which is treating all members of the public and municipal employees with dignity and respect, and accommodates a wide range of abilities. 25,000 people plus in CK have disabilities. My own family is part of that, which is why I do feel so strongly about advocating for this, along with the AAC. My partner suffered a life-altering injury not that long ago that permanently altered his vision. And my brother-in-law was a lifelong wheelchair user, and we likely all have friends or family who may have a disability, either visible or invisible. We all know seniors, those with mobility issues, or young parents with strollers. Including them and making our public facilities accessible to all is the right thing to do. It's not a frill, it's not a delay tactic, it's not a hassle or a nuisance, it's a must-do. And a more accessible building means a more positive experience for everyone who passes through our doors. And that's what this motion represents. I think we all around this horseshoe want to do what is right. And saying all the right things is great. That does help, and I think it does matter to hear that support around the council table. But what is also important to the committee is to see us put them into practice in writing through this motion. The AAC is a working committee of council. These are their terms of reference. And if this is already part of the process, that's great. That should mean smooth sailing and incorporating their feedback in a meaningful way. The committee would just feel more comfortable if this participation is endorsed tonight from a communication, transparency, and accountability perspective. In closing, providing a seat at the decision-making table in this next phase can help accomplish that, and it shows as a council and as an organization we value that input. A vote in support of this tonight is a vote to ensure that as this proposal moves into this next phase, that the 25,000 plus people in Chatham-Kent with disabilities that we represent are represented here too. Thank you for your time.
Before I'm going to go over to Edward, just so we can hear from the architect, just to talk a little bit about, I guess, what we're referencing here. So, Edward, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have the architect here, and we have a short presentation to talk about accessibility as it relates to the detailed design of this building. So I'm going to ask Dan to maybe provide that presentation.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. I'm Dan Amiconi from Architectura Inc. Architects. I'm leading the design from our design team. I just want to give you a few sort of updates on where we are with accessibility as well as where we are with some of the detailed design features within the hub. First off, like we recalled from last day, where we currently are, we completed the schematic design, which is basically the 2D stage. So all the planning and design was completed a few months ago. And now we've been working hard at detailed design, which we intend to complete here in the next couple of weeks for December the 20th. And what that entails is basically looking at room per room and all the different requirements within the room to ensure that accessibility and universal design is met. We're meeting with all the stakeholders. We're at the sort of the fourth round of meetings with our stakeholders through the museum, the library, as well as the civic piece to ensure that we sort of are meeting as well as exceeding all the different requirements of FADS, which is the Accessibility Design Standards within Chatham-Kent, the building code, as well as the AODA. And then at the end of the stage, we're expected to sort of reach a kind of completion of detailed design. We'll update our renderings, making sure that we're selecting materials, as well as providing the Class B budget to make sure that we're on track budget-wise. So as I alluded to, where we are right now is with the 3D, like in terms of the third dimension, that's the heights. So this is kind of a sketch, kind of a simple drawing that kind of entails, I put this drawing here because it entails a lot of the different issues that we're currently exhibiting in the, or trying to resolve within the hub. And that is basically identifying all the mounting heights for everything. So essentially all the grab bars, the heights of toilets, the heights of dispensers, the heights of mirrors, the heights of sinks. They all have a certain place within the built environment to ensure that we're meeting the current standard out there today. If you were to ask me how this will change in the future, I don't think this will change very much from the perspective of heights, because grab bars and toilets of, like toilet heights within the built environment have been like this for well over, 30, 40 years. We don't expect them to change very much, but some of the little nuances like, the additive features within the, within washrooms could be well met as well. The other thing that we're also doing in terms of, we're looking at the room by room comparison. And what that is, within the hub design, there's over 120 plus rooms. This is what we call a room data sheet. And what it entails is sort of the room by room kind of like requirements in terms of where, what the basic finishes will be, like flooring and painting and lighting to ensure that there's proper lighting within the space. But also in terms of how the furniture is fit within that room. If you can see some of the, for example, you'll see the little radius kind of turning circles for the wheelchair where they're going to be parked within the meeting room to make sure that they have their place within meeting rooms, and as well as all the different spaces within the hub. We look at the room by room comparison. And to make sure that we have proper, distances and kind of clearances. For example, you'll see that where the current fads for the Chatham-Kent accessibility standards are. It's at a 1,800 millimeter radius. Building code is 1,500 millimeter radius. So we are exceeding the current standard already, what we've been used to in the past in terms of the design. The other thing too that we're also achieving here is through the sort of the meetings with all the stakeholders is providing adjustability for tables. Some people within meetings like to stand instead of sit. So this is an aspect of universal design to make sure that we're meeting and exceeding that requirement. Most meeting rooms that I sit in today don't have this requirement. Again, this is another step that we're going above and beyond. And again, in a similar way, we look at all the different other spaces. You'll see the 3D that I presented last day with the customer service to the left. And then the kind of the detailed requirements in terms of how we're achieving the sit or the fit for the public side, whether you're going to be in a chair, whether you're going to be standing at the service desk, how is communication dealt with through slotted glass panels. Again, this is going to be a secure environment. We want to make sure that not only security is sort of well met in terms of the type of glass we use, but make sure that the staff is also sort of secure behind the customer service. And again, in a similar way from, as I alluded to, in terms of the design for the public side for variable sort of height, again, built-in requirements. We also have the staff side on the opposite side to ensure that we have the ability to sit and stand at the desk. So that also has now height adjustability through all those workstations as well, to extend the benefit of or the practical use of that station. Again, you'll see some of these, the 3Ds that we presented last day. Again, some of the things that we're doing here, we're looking at the type of lighting. We're taking a look at how we're achieving sort of accessibility through all the different built-in features at all the reception stations. Whether you're standing behind or sitting behind from the CK service side, or whether you're a visitor sort of asking for direction or information, or getting service at the reception desk in terms of the library. It's just kind of looking at all the sort of detailed requirements in terms of making sure that we're dealing with accessibility at every standard. Universal washrooms, again, a very basic kind of requirement within the building code right now, as well as AODA. But again, I put this slide in here just to kind of give you kind of a glimpse of all the different features that go inside a universal design or universal washroom. Again, all the different features in terms of equipment like sink, toilets, different features like waste receptacles and hand sort of dryers, soap dispensers. They all got to be at a certain reach height to make sure that people in a wheelchair or walkers that are, can be met and can be easily accessed. At the same time, too, this is, if you recall last day, we were kind of leading some of the charge in terms of dealing with people with sight issues. And again, for visually impaired, we deal with a certain requirement for identifying the characteristic and kind of the differentiation between floor and wall to kind of make sure that they're properly sort of navigating through the space. That's a CNIB in terms of the different regulation that kind of governs that. And again, just by simply identifying or changing the value of the floor, the composition or the color of the floor to the wall helps them easily navigate and easily distinguish between floor and wall, as well as all the different features, possibly the sink station sort of within the space as well. We're looking at signage, again, through all the different aspects. One of the key principles of universal design is wayfinding to make sure that we can properly navigate or easily navigate for people that have impairments. Again, these are kind of standard signage that we'll be reviewing with administration to make sure that we're meeting the requirements as well as all the different other aspects of the standard. And again, just from the basic principles of all the the different barrier-free and kind of family washrooms. And that sort of thing, as well as going one step further in terms of dealing with hearing impairments and providing hearing loop signage, and how the people with hearing impairments kind of be able to listen in at all the customer service and the sort of different stations for reception. And again, last point is just kind of looking at the tactile signage to make sure that people with visual impairments can sort of properly navigate through and identify certain aspects of the hub to ensure that it's again it's well met in terms of the response to giving people the detailed kind of vision in terms of what we see with people that don't have vision impairments. Again, I put an example here for detailed design. You recall last day, this is just a snippet of one of the designs of the second floor of the hub. So this is kind of a second floor that that describes just how we're using accessibility or incorporating accessibility. You'll see some of these, all the entries, doors to every office, every meeting room. You'll see these little kind of maneuvering kind of symbols here that have those little dashed kind of rectangles that that are currently the requirements for AODA to ensure that the things are barrier free. Every access point to every room, such as offices, such as meeting rooms, they'll have all this basic requirement. And again, we make sure that it's unimpeded, has no interference. Again, in a similar way with all the meeting rooms in terms of how they have similar access points, similar features for accessibility for wheelchair. And you see by comparison as well in terms of how that kind of wheelchair circle there, kind of if you compare that to where we are in the hallways and the sort of navigating, you can see how anywhere within the hallways you can kind of easily pivot. You don't have to necessarily go to the end of the hallway to get access or to sort of turn around a wheelchair. You can do it at any point of the hallways to maximize circulation and accessibility. We are going above and beyond. And again, the washrooms kind of in a similar way, you can see kind of moving some of the barriers such as doors and just having sort of open access to the washrooms without doors to make sure that, again, we lessen this whole sort of barrier-free or we increase barrier-free access and accessibility. I want to touch on a couple aspects of universal design. And again, some of the things in terms of just to highlight, some of the principles within universal design is, ensuring of equitable and inclusion. Again, we want to make sure that the hub will be useful for all people with all diverse abilities. We want to make sure that, it's simple and kind of intuitive and easy to navigate throughout the hub to make sure that people are not confused. The type of wayfinding we use, type of signage we use, we want to make sure that it's effective and it's kind of easily understood by, everybody using the hub. We want to make sure that the hub has flexibility in use. And, in a similar way, like we talked about last day in terms of providing, the maximum use or mixed, varied use of certain spaces to make sure that spaces from an efficiency standpoint can be used for more than one purpose. But here we can sort of easily change the spaces to alternative uses without having to go to a special use kind of areas and kind of really make sure that we keep in mind that the multi-use aspect of all spaces is kind of well met. We want to reduce physical, effort to kind of navigate through the space. That means, these excessively high doors and excessively difficult things to navigate. We want to reduce, the effort of, how we open doors and have access to all the different features of the hub. And lastly, we want to make sure that, it's appropriate for anybody with any size or space that's required. And again, that's sort of do all the doors and all the internal requirements I just kind of alluded to with the example of the floor plan, but throughout the space like the hallways to make sure that we can have access throughout we can turn without any area in the hub without sort of navigating a longer distance just to simply turn around in a wheelchair. So these are some of the examples of where our current design is meeting, universal design. I'll just kind of briefly run through some of these. Accessible entrances with automatic doors. Again, it's an aspect of universal design. There are entrances at every, from the mall, from the rear parking area, as well as from the main entrance off of King, as well as off of 5th Street. They all have automatic doors. Every principal entrance will have automatic doors to increase access. We want to make sure that, the flexible layouts for easy navigation, as I mentioned, again, just to kind of increase the utilization through all the space from an efficiency standpoint. There was a little bit of discussion at the last presentation of, will the hub have curbs, or will it have issues in navigating from one area to another? And again, this is just basically a point to reiterate that it's curbless. We have easy transition through every floor area from the museum to the library. It's all on one level, as well as the second floor level. All the different transitions from elevator, from all the different from hallway to the different aspects of the Civic Center will all sort of be met with easy, simple transitions. Again, ergonomic furniture. We know that with the universal design, we have to sort of meet for people that have different, varied heights and sort of sizes. We want to make sure that ergonomic furniture is height adjustable, and some of them have larger seats to make sure that it's easily met in terms of the size of people sort of utilizing the space. Non-slip flooring. You recall last day I talked a little bit about the TWSI and tactile warning sort of indicators. As an example, the little tactile kind of strips that you see kind of walking downtown at all the little transitions that go at the crosswalks for, at streets. Those little tactile sort of indicators there are sort of an example of this. And again, it just gives people that have visual impairments or certain restrictions the ability to kind of navigate and understand that there is a transition from one area to another. Ample lighting to make sure that, again, understanding that the museum, the library, and the civic space will all have its individual lighting requirements. But again, kind of making sure that it's also adjustable to ensure maximum effectiveness. Clear signage and wayfinding, again, ease of navigation, contrasting colors for visibility. As I alluded to in the barrier-free or the universal washroom example, this is an aspect of the CNIB that we have to make sure that we account for to make sure that the people with visual impairments can understand and navigate easily through the center. Accessible washrooms with grab bars, beyond just water closets. We want to ensure that we have grab bars for urinals as well. Again, just to make sure that we have that maximum accessibility. Wider doors, the OBC already deals with wider doors throughout the center or throughout the current design. As a comparison, most of, if not all the doors within the current building that we're in today don't meet the OBC because of the width requirement for doors for accessibility. Wider doors in the new hub will provide that that ability. Maneuvering areas, again, as I mentioned in that floor plan example, on the push side and the pull side of doors to make sure we have maximum maneuverability for wheelchairs, universal washrooms, as I mentioned. And then, the family washroom is an example. Some of these highlighted versions here, universal design standard, the ability to serve as gender neutral and other non-gender specific washrooms. We're going to have wellness rooms, multi-faith room, nursing rooms, mediation rooms, and first aid room. Those highlighted versions, or the ones I've highlighted there, are the ones that we're going above and beyond your standard universal design. And again, just to give you some sort of sense of where we are today. And then just kind of lastly touching on, in terms of accessibility, I've alluded this to the last presentation, and I'll close on this. We have a lot of experience with this in terms of accessibility and universal design. We've dealt with many, many different aspects of the current accessibility in terms of where we are today with our built-in environment, from, designing facilities such as, Windsor City Hall, courtrooms, all the various upgrades for schools and secondary schools. That by certain means that we don't have the ability to properly replace the school. They're spending money and providing accessibility design improvements. And then lastly, just kind of going back to the point of what we talked about in terms of the distance from parking to main entrance. I alluded to this last day in terms of other municipalities similar to the size of Chatham-Kent have the distance kind of regulated rather than within their bylaw of 100 to 150 meters of acceptable range distance from parking spaces to main entrances. And the highlighted ones there, Brantford, Clarington, just to give you a few examples in terms of providing that same kind of similarity in terms of the similar approach to the design rather than their bylaw. Other ones that don't have stipulation, again, very similar, but they don't have a stipulation, but they do mention in terms of residential design, different than commercial. So, and that's it. I'll open it up to any questions.
So what I'll do is, for this, if there's any other questions of the presenter or of Edward, of any of the staff or anything, then I'll go to all the other comments and stuff. Then Councillor Harrigan, I'll go to you just after we go to these questions. So questions, Councillor, okay. Sakachi, Doyle, Crew. Okay, Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to defer the initial comments to the seconder if she'd like to speak on it, if that's Councillor Harrigan.
Yes, so I'm just dealing with any particular questions you have of, okay, Councillor Harrigan, do you have any questions you want to? No, I don't. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I really appreciate the second presentation. Again, I just wanted to ask a couple questions because obviously accessibility is of the greatest importance when we're doing especially a potential new build. With what you've all just indicated, would you say that accessibility is probably one of the most significant factors that you're taking on this current build, given all the stuff that you just indicated in your presentation?
Yes, you know, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's something that, you know, when we plan it, we provide, when we did the initial the functional space program in terms of establishing all the areas, accessibility, we have to make sure that we go a little bit above and beyond and kind of, we increase the basic requirement with what's called the gross area markup. So what that is taking your net area of 100 square feet office, for instance, and we increase it to 130% to make sure that we have proper maneuvering space and accessibility around that office to get to and from the office. So it is one of the key features that kind of drives that the gross factor markup in terms of once we establish area. And that was one of the initial things initial studies that we did to establish what the basic area requirement for the hub would be. So to answer your question, absolutely, that's one of the key kind of drivers of that establishing area.
So every aspect of this building will meet or exceed any accessibility standards?
Absolutely.
Perfect. And I guess the last question, and this is probably a more technical question as I'm not a professional in your field as of you are. So the fact that you have some of this stuff kind of started, I'm not sure of exactly where it lies, what you're working on right now. If there was to be a change in the direction and how this would, you know, potentially facilitate, what would that now do to would there be a delay? Would there be potential remodifications? I guess I'm just trying to understand the process now. If you've already started these and we're already meeting all these, what would additional direction mean for Edward's team or for your team?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think, you know, if you get an accessibility expert or a person that has, you know, accessibility experience, we'd have to look at, or they would be looking at, you know, further requirements and or finding other requirements that our design currently doesn't achieve or doesn't meet. And it'll put a little bit of a delay on because once we wait for those requirements to come in, we may have to do some redesign or some replanning for certain areas of the hub. But it is my belief that we already are, you know, meeting those objectives in terms of accessibility in AODA and OBC. We've dealt with this before, you know, being in business for 31 years. There's nothing that's going to be really, really earth-shattering to us that is going to be something that, you know, that is going to hit us blindsided. So we would simply take those comments, make certain smaller adjustments, and kind of, you know, carry on. But further than the space requirements and some of the three-dimensional kind of characteristics that we're already establishing, we don't see that there's anything further that we really need to sort of worry about.
So a lot of the stuff in the motion is already underway, essentially.
It is, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it is, like, you know, in terms of the distance to the parking, you know, from the planning perspective, we've met and achieved all the, you know, the area requirements that are needed throughout the hub from the planning, as well as, you know, ensuring that all the different features that go into making sure that spaces are more accommodating for accessibility design. It meets the current design right now.
Thank you, and thank you for returning for the second presentation. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for you, Dan. So last time you were, and thank you very much for the presentation. So last time you were here, I brought up just having accessible parking spots on King Street, just for Service Ontario there, because they weren't in the original drawings. In talking to a couple people, they said because of where they are, we might have to take some of the sidewalk away. So I just wondered if you had been able to look at that yet, or where you were with that. I know you still have lots of time, but I didn't know if you were able to get to that yet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we haven't looked at that yet in terms of the, you know, because we need to know the number of spaces that we need to sort of facilitate. But, you know, we can easily achieve additional parking for barrier-free parking along King Street if we need to be. And how we do that, whether through angular parking or, you know, other lay-by parking, we can easily meet that. And again, that's a small aspect in terms of the site design that we're currently doing right now. We're more focused on the internal built environment in terms of the building. And we'll move sort of to the more the site-related elements once we get into the formal submissions for submission for site plan approval for the municipality.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, and this might be for the architecture firm or for Edward. So based on the presentations we've seen so far and the level of design we've seen, would this be the most accessible building municipally owned in Chatham-Kent?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would hazard to say yes.
Yeah, thank you. The other question I had was related to the financial component of the report, the $80,000 impact, and is that associated with number 3, the recommendation 3? I was just trying to understand where that worked.
I believe it's actually associated with 2 items. One was associated with potentially having to hire a secondary or complementary universal design expert if this team was determined not to be, you know, capable of providing that. And second one was related to the traffic study. It's staff's position, as you see in our response, that a traffic study is not required. So it's really the hiring of 2 consultants additional to the team that we currently have.
Okay, and could you maybe just speak to the, number 3 says, planning will include standard studies for a project of this type and size. Are we doing those studies already? Is the traffic study the only additional component of that, number 3?
It's administration's perspective that we don't need a traffic impact study. I think we've outlined it inside the response, but I'm actually going to ask the Director of Engineering maybe to provide some background on that too.
Great, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as Mr. Soldo's noted, we do not require a traffic impact study. The site is already a built site and developed site, and we're renovating an existing component. So a number of those pieces were considered in the planning construction of the site as it's already been built. I believe the site has approximately 460 spaces in the parking garage, and then a number of on-site surface parking spaces. We're not proposing any notable changes to those. There's some minor changes to the number of loading dock spaces versus converting a few to accessible parking spaces, but no notable changes to number of parking. So that's something we would be looking at that's already been established for the site. In terms of traffic impact study, the existing accesses, we're not proposing changes to those either. Those are already located at traffic signals. That's something we would look at with a traffic impact study is, do we need controls? But we already have those controls in place at the existing accesses, so hence not required.
Thank you, that's helpful. That's all.
Okay, Councillor Harrigan. I'll go over. As a seconder, you had to,
Yes, so as a seconder, I do have two amendments that I believe are friendly that I'd spoken with Councillor Story about, but they replace number 1 and 2. So it would say 1, that Chatham-Kent staff provide a summary of the accessibility standards that the CK Hub detailed design will reference and leverage to meet best practice for current accessibility design, and to publish these standards on the Let's Talk CK page for members of the public to access. And 2, further, for staff to review these standards with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Age Friendly Committee for feedback prior to the detailed design being presented to council. And if our mover agrees that those are still friendly, I'll just speak to them quickly. Okay, perfect. So, you know, in some conversations, I think I absolutely agree that accessibility standards are important, and I think there is a little bit of disconnect from the public in understanding what we have as municipal legislation and how old that legislation is, and then what our project team has done and how that meets the standards. So by taking the report that we've just received and all of that information and publishing it on the Let's Talk page, what we are able to do is then, you know, whenever anybody asks us, we have that information available to us. It's public, it's out in the open. We can confirm that that is how we're going to continue the design. And then number 2 just asks that, you know, prior to coming to council, there be another conversation with the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Age Friendly Committee to help those committees kind of walk through, understand, give that opportunity for feedback or more information, so that when it comes back to us as a council, we know that it's been vetted through those 2 bodies that we have that we really leverage for these types of initiatives, just providing a bit of clarity from the previous wording, right? That just leaves it a bit open-ended in terms of how far we would go for feedback. So I would personally appreciate it if we could split 1 and 2 from the rest. I think others might want to pull other numbers out to vote, but I would see like 1 and 2 as kind of like that minimum commitment to transparency and sharing with the public accessibility and leveraging the current committees of council that we have of a project of this magnitude.
okay, so we'll split 1 and 2 out, and then do you want it each 3, 4, 5, 6, all voted on separately? Or I'll go to the mover or the seconder.
Sure, that's fine.
So 3, 4, 5, 6 will be all separate items we're voting on. Like,
Sure.
okay. So no, we're gonna do 1 and 2 as the first one, and then 3, unless there's groupings you want to do. Don't care, and like if you want to go 3, 4, 5, 6 together, it's your call as the mover.
No, that's fine. I think splitting up 1 and 2 together is fine. I think splitting up 3, 4, 5, and 6
Okay.
as well.
Okay, so we'll do that. So we'll have
individually.
5 votes on this one then. Okay.
Sure.
Any other questions before I go back to Councillor Story? Seeing none, Councillor Story, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everyone for your feedback, and thank you again, Don, for returning 3 times from Windsor. I appreciate it, and certainly any opportunity to review and discuss accessibility at this table, I welcome. And again, a detailed presentation, and none of that has been shared with the Accessibility Committee. So bringing it to council is important, and bringing it to this table is important, because I do think there's huge value in that. I mean, I've learned something every time we talk about it, to be honest. And I'm happy, and it's gonna keep coming back to council, which is great. I mean, I fully support that, but this has not been shared in detail with the AAC. So that is the motivation underpinning this motion. I appreciate all the slides and all the information. It's very important, and I'm thrilled and relieved, to be honest, to see that information compiled in a detailed way for us to see. We need the AAC to review that as well. These are folks with lived experiences. They are smart. They are experienced in providing this feedback. This is literally their mandate as a council committee. They've done this before. I mean, certainly this is a new proposal, but they do this for municipal facilities all the time. And even just to look at certain slides, for example, from the washroom perspective, the best practice now is to have railings on either side to lift yourself up. Just to use one very small example, and folks in the Accessibility Committee could probably provide more updates. So that's why it's really important for me to emphasize the importance of everything we've seen tonight to also be shared with the Accessibility Committee. In terms of putting the timeline as a concern, I certainly respect that, and timelines are there for a reason, but I would never encourage or support personally putting a timeline ahead of the needs of our users if we're going to embark on a project of this scale. And if accessibility is that important, we need to take the time to do it properly. I would also suggest if there is a cost involved, if we're looking at a $53+ million proposal, $80,000 should be a very reasonable drop in the bucket to make sure that we have all those I's dotted and T's crossed. But we're not actually asking for money in this motion. If it's all being included, this is great. This is basically just more about the communication and the accountability and the AAC being asked to fulfill their mandate. So this committee and myself included would just feel more comfortable getting that council support to ensure that we have this in writing and committed. Not only does it play a practical role in giving direction to the proposal team, but it also plays a role in showing support to the more than 25,000 Chatham-Kent residents in our communities with disabilities, the people who elected us to represent them. It shows that we're listening to their needs, and it shows that their needs are important. I think the feedback of the AAC to date in this proposal has been critical, and it remains critical moving forward. Just a few more items, and then I will wrap it up. The traffic and parking impacts. We put this in there for a reason, because it is very important how we manage traffic flow in terms of vehicles and also people throughout the site. This site has not been used for any real reason for many years now. And this, I know maybe in the planning and engineering definitions, we don't need to do it. But in terms of a functional perspective, it's pretty important to figure out where everybody's going to be, how people access and enter and exit the building. Traffic impact studies and parking considerations on and near the site have been raised numerous times by this committee and the community, which is why we included it in this motion. And we even, we talk about parking studies and traffic impacts all the time on our proposals that come to council. In fact, we talked about it at length last week. So I think I'm a bit puzzled why we wouldn't include that in one of the biggest proposals we've ever seen at this table. So having that information to review as a committee is crucial to understand the movement of people and vehicles around the site that can be done safely. If the current usage of places like the library are any indication, a large number of seniors will be accessing the site. People with kids and strollers will be accessing the site. With all due respect, Mr. Mayor, we just had 10 or 15 minutes with the presenter. I would appreciate
that was the
some
purpose of this,
flexibility.
is to get all the questions in, but hey.
Can I have a little more discretion? Thank you. I am almost finished, but I appreciate the timing. Making sure that people can get in and around the site safely is critical. We don't know for sure if we can add more spaces to these streets yet. That's why we need traffic studies, and these are normal components. All of that said, I want to make sure that accessibility is not just about parking spaces, although they're very important, but the duty to accommodate people with disabilities overrides everything else in terms of the law, and the AAC can help us ensure that. I want to thank everyone on council for the discussion, for your feedback, for your consideration. Knowing that we can commit tonight to this motion, we go a long way in alleviating concerns and ensuring that this perspective is a key part of the next phase. The Accessibility Committee represents these voices across Chatham-Kent, and I ask that we remember who we represent at this table. They are asking to be at the table for the next phase of this proposal as it moves forward, and it ensures that the important voices are heard and this facility is open to everyone. And thank you for your discretion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote. So we're going to vote on number 1 and 2 first.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-1.
You're going to vote on item number 3?
Through 6. Oh, right.
No, we're splitting
Yep,
them all
you're
up.
right. You're right. All votes are in. Motion fails 5-13.
Item 4.
All votes are in. Motion passes 11-7.
Item 5.
All votes are in. Motion fails 9-9.
And item 6.
Councillor Finn? All votes are in. Motion fails 5-13.
We'll move on to item 17, Entegrus.
This evening we have a presentation by Jim Hogan, President and CEO of Entegrus, Inc.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and all of Council. My pleasure to be here to present the 2023 results of Entegrus. Entegrus has 4 subsidiaries: Entegrus Power Lines, which is our core company, Entegrus Services, Entegrus Transmission, and then Entegrus Renewable. Entegrus Power Lines were regulated by the Ontario Energy Board, so there's much more regulations, and that is, as I say, our core business. And we work hard to be as efficient as possible. Our goal is to be in the second group out of 5. As part of the most efficient, and the last few years we've been in the first group. So we're very successful in achieving our goal of being as efficient as possible. A priority for us is health and safety. As you can imagine, many of our employees are working on live lines out in difficult weather. So we spend a lot of time on training, a lot of time on our health and safety programs. And once again, we've achieved the certification of recognition in 2023 in good standing. We're a very community-focused organization, donated more than $400,000 in actual cash to various organizations in all the service territories that we participate in. We've also done, giving back of actually some time of our staff and things that are important to them. And what we have there is a list of a few items, a few of the organizations that we have made donations into Chatham-Kent. There's many more throughout the other service areas, but wanted to highlight what we do here in Chatham-Kent. Our employees are our number 1 asset. Again, we continue to have significant turnover, as there's more retirements. And so we've had 18 external hires, but one of the nice things, we've been able to have some internal promotions for 7 individuals. So again, giving these key individuals opportunities to grow and provide better services to our customers. And then part of what I think makes us successful is we partner with the colleges and the universities. So we have a relationship with St. Clair College here in Chatham, Fanshawe College in London, because we have the St. Thomas Service Center, and then Western University, and then the University of Windsor. So we're able to attract some very good young talent into our organization. As far as our customers, we grew by 1% last year. We have many electronic tools to assist our customers in getting information and paying their bills and so on. And so it's great to see more and more customers joining. And then we've achieved 94% in our customer satisfaction survey. So we're quite pleased about that. Capital programs, as you can imagine, is very important for us to reinvesting in the distribution system. We spent $14.4 million last year. And a big thing is converting the old assets and bringing it up the voltage into a higher voltage. Therefore, that'll really improve the reliability of the customers and really help us get ready for the future of electrification, so electric vehicles and whatever else the customers may need. have a list there of a number of projects we did again in Chatham-Kent. We did many more in the other service territories, but just kind of wanted to highlight what we've done in Chatham-Kent. And we always look for new technology, so smart grid. And then again, as I say, we do have a lot of subdivision and general service or commercial customer growth. The Entegrus services, that's our data center, and that business is still going very well. Our key client is still in there. Entegrus Transmission, it's still a profitable organization, profitable company, and there we support the renewable generation here in Chatham-Kent. Entegrus Renewable, we have a direct investment in the North Kent Wind. The returns there continue to be strong. Since we participated and started in that project, the cash injections or the cash received from has been more than $900,000. So again, very good investment. So the 2023 financial results, we exceeded our target. Yes, it is less than the 2022, but in 2022, we had a significant individual project. We had a partner that helped, that's invested in our utility corridor. So therefore, there is another organization that has an easement on there, and we incurred that revenue in 2022, but received the cash in 2023. The additional revenue went up by 6.7%. 3.7% of that was the rate increase, and the rest of that is just customers using more. Our costs went up by 7%, and there we've had a lot more customer requests for locates. We had some storm recovery, so doing that, and then just the additional investments in maintenance programs really to improve the reliability. And then also, when we're making these investments in our distribution assets, there's more depreciation. So for that expense increases. As I mentioned, we increased the net property, plant, and equipment by almost 5%. We still have a strong balance sheet, strong capital structure, so we're meeting the 60-40 debt to equity identified and recommended by the Ontario Energy Board. And then in 2023, we paid the highest, declared and paid the highest dividend we ever had for Entegrus. So as far as the annual general meeting resolutions, there's 3 resolutions. One is accepting the audited financial statements from 2023 that were recommended by the directors of our corporation. Second one would be appointing these board members onto the Entegrus Inc. board. As you can see, there's 6 of them that are Chatham-Kent representatives. 2 are actually from council, being Mayor Caniff and then Councillor Brock McGregor, and the other ones are independent board members. And then you're also approving the other 3 board members that are appointed or recommended by the other 2 shareholders. And then the third one is appointing MNP as the auditor for the December 2024 audit. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor McDonald, can I get you to move and second this, please?
So moved.
Happy to second.
Seeing no questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Mr. Hogan. We'll go on to item 20, Chief Administrative Office.
20B, motion of Councillor Sakachi regarding support for primary care access points and physician recruitment.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Clerk, do I have to go through this entire motion again since it's already been read on the floor once as it is?
It would be nice for the public to know what's being proposed. Sorry.
Carmen, you got away with it on one of yours.
I'm just asking for the action items, but those are all action items, so.
All right. I got a drink of water. That Chatham-Kent support primary care access points and physicians recruitments in the following ways. To establish a primary care family physician incentive reserve of $140,000 annually, or $420,000 total for the remainder of the 2024-2027 multi-year budget, funded initially by the transfer of $420,000 from the strategic reserve, and base funding be considered by the next council in the 2028-2031 multi-year budget. 2, that the primary care family physician incentive reserve be made available to primary care organizations in Chatham-Kent for the purpose of providing practice incentives to newly established primary care physicians in Chatham-Kent for up to $25,000 per physician recruitment, where no additional community grants are available, and $15,000 per physician recruit where community grants are available, or in exceptional circumstances, directly to new physicians who establish solo practices in Chatham-Kent outside of the 4 named primary organizations included in the motion. 3, that the primary care family physician incentive reserve may also be made available for those same organizations to apply for up to $20,000 once every 5 years as a match grant to support capital funding or new build renovations that are for the express purpose of expanding clinical space to accommodate new physician offices in primary care across Chatham-Kent. 4, that the CAO and General Manager of Development Services or their delegates be authorized to review and approve applications for the grants from this reserve, and that the CAO and General Manager of Development Services be authorized to enter into appropriate agreements with each of the primary care organizations to facilitate the transfer of funds in the above circumstances, and for a process for partial payback physician recruitment grants for services of less than 5 years given in the alignment with the current practice of the physician task force, such agreements to be satisfactory to the Director of Legal Services. And 5, for the municipality of Chatham-Kent, as both a partner to the Chatham-Kent Ontario Health Team and community leader, continue to support the work of the Physician Recruitment and Retention Task Force across its departments where appropriate to do so, and particularly through departments of community attraction and promotion, economic development, small business center, and communication departments in an effort to increase the number of Chatham-Kent residents able to access primary care in Chatham-Kent.
Councillor Harrigan, can I second that?
Happy to, Mayor Caniff.
Okay, Councillor Sakachi?
Yeah, let me just take a quick drink here, Mayor. I think most of the comments were made last week, and for the the residents that maybe didn't tune in or that weren't present, I think that what this really is, and first of all, I want to thank Councillor Harrigan for working with me on this motion. But I think what the main goal of this is to try to get us in the game as a municipality. Many other communities around us are creating programs as such to invest in their community to attract physicians. We've heard the numbers. We know how stark of a reality is and how many people aren't rostered right now. I think that we as a community have done some great things, particularly like the Bridge Care Program, those types of things. But at the end of the day, we really need family physicians, and this helps us get a chip and a chair in the game. And I think that as a council, we've had some discussions around this at budget already. I hope that the appetite is still here, and I think that hopefully, relatively speaking, the council will support this, as I think it's an important matter in our community. Thank you.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I don't have too much to say. I think, like some other motions, we've had a few conversations about this, and also through one of Councillor Doyle's creative motions during budget process, we've kind of potentially earmarked some funds to this cause, which is really great that it's been a bit of a generative conversation over time. The one piece that I did want to mention, and it was just brought forward to me during a council conversation earlier today, was why are we doing it this way? Why have a municipal grant, a municipal reserve, and have our staff kind of administer it directly with the primary care organizations? And it's really, it allows us for some transparency, right? In 3 years from now, we're able to say, okay, how many grants do we give out? Where are those physicians practicing? And then based on what's happening in the community, what we're seeing, we can then, make some modifications if need be, or tweaks to it. But what this does do is it gives those who are working in primary care recruitment a really great base to work from, as Councillor Sakachi said, to really get in the game and be competitive. And then also give a bit of runway, right? So we've got residents right now that are starting their family medicine residency or just in that year 1 of residency. So they might be listening to this council meeting, and the message we want to have is really clear. You're welcome here in Chatham-Kent. We want you to stay in Chatham-Kent. We've got lots of people to help you build a really great practice, and across the municipality, taxpayers and staff in Chatham-Kent are going to do everything we can to keep you here to give some great service to the residents of Chatham-Kent.
Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kenneth. I was wondering if our movers would do a friendly amendment, and the friendly amendment would be with number 2. And basically, it would say that the primary care family physician incentive reserve be made available to primary care organizations in Chatham-Kent for the purpose of providing practice incentives to newly established primary care physicians in Chatham-Kent for up to $25,000 per physician recruitment. We would take off if I can see this right. Oh, there he did it. It's already there. So we're going to take off the 10,000, the 15,000 portion, and the reason why is that I just want to make sure that Dresden, Richtown, and Blenheim are also able to access the $25,000 per physician through their community health care networks. So,
Is that a friendly amendment?
Yes, Mayor Kenneth, it's friendly.
Perfect.
thank
Okay.
you.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Story.
Thank you. I hope I also have a friendly amendment, and it's an additional number 6 that are, and I'll read it here, that a report on alternative spending options for the incentive reserve, including but not limited to supports for the CK Family Residence Training Program, student loan forgiveness, and learner engagement to be included in a future report to council.
Is that a friendly amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I think, yeah, number 6, I'm happy with that. I think that is, just to clarify to the potential amender, a future report, would it be the totality of the entire program? Because I would like to see not just that part. I guess it would be beneficial to see the total report come back to see how it's functioning.
I assume we'd see a report come back on what this looks like, and that's a component that I would hope to see in the report, based on the feedback we received.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well, Mayor Kenneth.
Councillor Harrigan?
Yeah, friendly if Councillor Sakachi just starts at number 1 and reads it all again. So
Yes.
no.
Okay, it's unfriendly then.
And I did have some additional comments, and I appreciate the amendment being friendly, and I think that from what we've heard, I think it is important in some ways to look at other alternatives outside of direct incentives, knowing that that's a very challenging game to compete in. And unfortunately, we're competing not just against other municipalities, but against the provincial government itself as well. So they offer incentives of $80,000 to $125,000 for Northern Ontario. Some of those communities add another $60,000 to $80,000 on top of that. So you're looking at $160,000 to $200,000, and that's the type of game we're throwing a chip in on. And I think that's challenging. And I think we should also recognize that we're competing in this game because there's a limited resource that's been throttled by the provincial government over years and years and years of not training enough family doctors, of not having models that compensate in a way that attracts family doctors or attracts doctors to move to family practice. And as a municipality, we can't solve that problem. And I don't want to throw too much water on this motion, but I think it's important to note that while we feel like we do need to compete in this, there's a lot of dissenting voices in Ontario. The president of the Ontario Medical Association says that incentives are a Hunger Games style framing, pitting communities against each other. And the recommendations from that body was to increase the number of family doctor residency positions, to reduce administrative load, to back team-based care models. And those are certainly outside of things we can do, but I think we need to be cognizant that those are some of the real solutions to a problem that we're trying to elbow in and do something for our community, I understand. Ian Colbert, the Canadian Public Health Association chair, said that these types of things actually have a negative impact on health equity, and his suggestion was student loan forgiveness programs. So I think it's important that when we look at these options, we're thinking outside of just incentives, knowing that that's a difficult a game to compete in. So, I appreciate the need we recognize in our community. Unfortunately, we're in this situation with other communities in Ontario, and it's, I think unfortunately we have to compete against each other. That's a difficult reality. So I appreciate, the motivation of the mover and seconder bringing this report forward, but just thought it was important to bring up a couple points of what we're facing in Ontario. Thank you.
Councillor Story, followed by Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. A lot of what I was going to say, Councillor McGregor mentioned as well. I was going to use the Hunger Games term. I didn't read that article, but it's certainly a common sentiment, because I do feel like it's a race to the bottom in terms of how much money we can raise, and some communities won't have that ability. But we're this is a game we find ourselves in, so I totally respect Councillor Sakachi and Harrigan trying to find solutions to a very difficult problem that almost every Ontario municipality is in. And I will support it as well, although I would like to support Councillor McGregor's inclination to look at as many non-direct financial outlays as possible. I would love to see the student loan forgiveness and other maybe non-traditional incentives that might actually set us apart in different ways than just the straight up cash incentives, but I do realize that that's where we find ourselves right now. Just a financial question perhaps to Gord. So right now the motion, if I'm understanding correctly, we'd be putting in 140,000 every year for 25, 26, and 27?
Yes, a total of 420,000 for that 3-year period. I don't think there's restrictions on exactly what is spent in each year. Like if they had a good year of recruiting or a bad or a slow year recruiting, I think it's 420,000 for the 3-year period.
Okay, thank you. And this would be creating a new reserve, but this is coming out of our strategic reserves, and so what is the status of that right now, and will we need to replenish that amount at some point?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So during the budget process, we talked about a bit that there was $4 million in our strategic reserves currently, but we know we have a couple major issues outstanding to figure out over the next 6 months. We were projecting a $2 million 2024 deficit, and we had a $2 million to date cost on a fire at 99 McNaughton. That, but both of those, neither of those are final. We're trying to get. We'll see where we really are at year end, and we'll also see if the province or through insurance or the province whether any of that $2 million is reduced. So basically, we start at $4 million. In the budget process, through the motion of Councillor Doyle, we moved $250,000 from other labor reserves to the strategic reserve. So it would have $4,250,000 in it, and now this motion's taking the $420,000 out and setting up a specific reserve for physicians.
Thank you, Gord. This might be perhaps a Councillor Harrigan question or staff, but if I'm reading the report, the information report from staff correctly, and from the physician task force team, I didn't think I saw any financial partner information in terms of who else is committed to doing this. Are they looking solely to the municipality for this funding, or are there other partners that we're working with or seeking out? I'm not sure who that question is best addressed to.
Mayor Ken, if I can provide some comment with my background knowledge of the healthcare system.
Go right ahead.
So as was mentioned in Councillor McGrail's comment about the friendly amendment, we do have certainly community groups in sectors that are raising funds to top up or to match or to add different incentives. I also know that different primary care organizations will leverage their physician groups to, for example, waive administrative fees or to help physicians leverage administrative fees in that sense. And then part of the longer term plan of the physician recruitment task force did include looking to private partners, business organizations, sponsor a doctor type of campaigns to go forward. That hasn't come, to my knowledge, to fruition yet. I think largely because it's been a bit of year over year. Are we going to exist next year? And how can they plan kind of for a bit more long term? So I would expect that we would see perhaps a bit more of that happening in the community going forward.
Thank you. And one last question then. Would you characterize this as an act of good faith that we're contributing? We're hoping that other community partners will see our investment and ideally they will consider doing the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we heard at the last deputation a couple of weeks ago from Chatham-Kent Family Health Team that they had raised maybe $50,000 in just a couple of weeks, or they were targeting $50,000. So I do think that this provides a tax-based contribution for physician recruitment. And certainly I think we're trusting our partners in primary care and others in the community to to take this and really take the 3 years and look at how we can expand and grow it through creative programs and other incentives, match grants. And to Councillor B. McGregor's comments as well, how can we make Chatham-Kent stand out? Our winters are a bit more mild compared to the north. I'll just put that out there in case anyone's listening.
Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you. My question's probably for Gord. So just for clarification, so in number 1, the 420,000 from strategic reserves and base funding considered by the next council in 2028-31. So that means that we are considering putting this money into reserves in the base for those years?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for the 3-year period, from 25 to 27, we're using 420,000 from reserves.
Right.
If council will, I'm sure, be provided an update report, and you know, we're really thinking of the next council actually in 2027. We'll probably need an update report, and prior to heading into the multi-year budget that they do in November of 2027. And at that point in time, there could be a recommendation in the staff report to actually put money into the base budget and be raising property taxes, and that this be in the base so it doesn't have to keep on coming back to councils for approval. But that'll be that part's being deferred to the next council to make that decision.
All right, and I think that that's important because this is always coming back, and I think the 85,000 that we already approved in budget has gone into base, so that will just be funded from here on in, because I think that this is, I don't know how many times and how many terms this has come back, because we've always had a doctor shortage in our community, and I think the number was 31,000 people without an attached physician. That's a lot for our community. So it's a real problem. And I think that hopefully the next council will see the value in that as well.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you very much, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, just a few comments. I just wanted to thank Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Harrigan for putting this motion together. I think it's very timely, I think, in our community in Wallaceburg. As there's a, you know, with the health team is busy, you know, fundraising with a lot of community members, business owners, and volunteers, you know, to try to help fill that gap for physicians that are needed in Wallaceburg specifically. So I remember when the group got together, I was thinking, you know, how can we help support this? And I think Councillor McGregor and I spoke about it, and then Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Harrigan put this motion forward, which is very, very positive, I think, and will help with the efforts that they're working on right now. So thank you for that. I did want to mention as well, I think this reminded me when this came up, you know, doing this, I think I support it fully, but it reminded me of a couple budgets ago when we, as a council, decided to give some funds to the hospital build in Wallaceburg as well, and very thankful for that. And you know, it makes me think we just got through budget, and you know, the hospital and our physicians and our healthcare organizations, they don't fall under our responsibility per se, but they're a necessity and you know, top of the priority list for people in our communities all across Chatham-Kent. So I think this is a great way for us as a municipal council to support these efforts, support our community. You know, I think it falls in line with our term priorities as well, promoting safety and well-being, growing our community. It's something that I'll be happy to support, and I'm glad that we're able to contribute. Thank you.
Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to also thank you, the mover and seconder, for making this motion. We definitely have a shortfall of family doctors in Chatham, and as people, as doctors retire, it's just going to get worse. So we need to compete with the other municipalities and get some new doctors here. Also want to thank Councillor McGrail for the friendly amendment. I had actually talked to Councillor Sakachi today about doing the one that was almost identical to that. So definitely support that, and thank you very much.
Councillor Harrigan, any final words before I go to Councillor Sakachi?
No, Mayor Caniff, appreciate the conversation.
Okay, Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just very briefly, one of the things that I just wanted to speak to is I definitely know that this isn't a solution, and there's probably a lot of better things that, you know, can happen. But as Councillor McGregor had said, there's a lot of things that we just can't do, you know, as a municipality. So I think anything at this point is better than nothing. Right now, we often are having solutions come to the horseshoe that aren't actually solutions. They're just trying to patch some big concerns. For instance, another report that we have coming on right now for Hope Haven. That's not a solution. That's there to help the community who needs it. The solution would be is that we didn't have anybody in our community that was living unhoused and not having a place to stay. We're talking about encampment policies, encampment things. Well, the goal of our community would be never to have somebody living in a tent. The goal of this is not to fix the problem, but just try to put something in place to try to intensify our search for family doctors. This isn't not going to solve the issue. There's going to be there's bigger things and probably better things that other communities are doing, but this shows the community that we recognize the concern. We're trying to do what we can to provide some funds, and maybe the next council wants to double this incentive. Maybe they want to put, but at least this is a starting point, and I just really hope as a community, this is something that affects our most vulnerable, our seniors, and our new residents to our community. So I do hope that as a council, we do support this. Thank you.
With that, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Item 21, Health and Human Services.
21B, Hope Haven Winter Warming Center.
Councillor Story and Councillor Allen, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Happy to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Happy to second it.
Councillor Story?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I probably won't forget tonight's deputations for the rest of my life. So I just wanted to put that out there. I want to thank Renee, Julie, Justin, Raymond, and Laura for all sharing your perspectives. I think it really brought home what we're facing in Chatham-Kent. I just spent several days in Ottawa at a municipal event that was with municipalities from across Canada, and I can share that every community is facing this intractable problem, and we're all desperate to fix it. And we need more support from the federal government and from the province. And to Councillor Sakachi's point, we do need these stopgap measures until we can impress upon our federal and provincial counterparts the need to come to the table. So I really appreciate the courage and the strength of your personality to come and speak to us. I also want to recognize Dr. Mayo in the audience, who is an angel on earth in this community in so many ways. I also appreciate the detail in this report. I think it will be very helpful in reminding our community, and I certainly, council, we talk about it all the time, about the dire needs here. I do have a few questions, probably for Jody. So this is coming entirely from provincial funding. Do you believe, is it your understanding that this is ongoing funding for the moment, or do we know if this is coming to an end at any point, or can you give us a little more detail about the funding program that we're using for this? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The HPP funding is currently part of our base funding allocation, and we're not expecting that funding to end at any point in time, although we haven't seen any increases to the funding either. And so that does, in fact, create some pressures within the housing portfolio that we have.
So while the numbers of people in our community who are experiencing homelessness is going up, that funding is not?
Correct.
Okay. I do worry about that and the changing priorities and the recent statements by the Premier that they potentially will not provide shelter funding unless we meet certain terms like dismantling encampments. I'm uneasy with that type of messaging and where it might be leading. But to be honest, it seems like $65,000 is a very low number to meet that need, to expand winter warming services to Hope Haven, and that's certainly not a criticism. In fact, it's the opposite. So what happens when March 1st hits? This is going to February 28th, correct? And then we'll be reviewing it at that time, because March can be cold as well.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. And through you, Mr. Mayor, you are correct that this does allow the program to continue for 3 months up until the end of March. At that point in time, we will review, we will reassess, and we will manage in the way that makes the most sense at that point in time.
Okay, and then just my last question. Are there any other overnight warming centers in Chatham-Kent right now?
No, there aren't.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this report. I really appreciate the presentations. I'd also really like to reiterate my thanks to Kim Crew, who is just doing an outstanding job on this file. I am so impressed by her dedication and compassion and her realistic approach to this work. I have learned so much from her in meetings that I have attended with her, and I just cannot say enough good things about her. And I also think we're so incredibly fortunate to have her as part of the team. I also want to thank Josh Myers as well. I haven't spent as much time with Josh directly, but I know he and the rest of the housing team are going above and beyond to tackle this crisis, so your work does not go unnoticed. Thank you. Really does not seem like enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Worship, through you. I'd like to thank the people that did come in to give their heartfelt deputations. If anybody ever questions where their money goes, I had the honor of going in last, I think it was Monday night, and just opening the doors, you could see the people that came in were very grateful. This was out of their own pockets. I spent almost, I think it was an hour and a half in there speaking with the staff and the people that came in and hearing some of their stories. Some of them I knew, but it is appreciated. And yeah, they weren't in there all night long. They'd come in, they'd leave, they'd come back. So they were quite thankful that it was open, and thank you, Lori.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 17-0 with 1 conflict.
Item 22, Finance, Budget, Information Technology, and Transformation.
Mutual aid agreements.
Councillor Juvenville and Councillor McDonald, can I get your puts on the floor, please?
I so move. And seconded.
Councillor Juvenville, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have 2 simple financial questions. In the bylaw, 8A, it says any costs incurred in connection with the provision of mutual assistance shall be borne by the responding party. So if a municipality or a partner in the agreement is the responder, they are going to incur the financial burden of this. Is that, like, does that make sense? Because then it says the receiver doesn't have to pay, but the responder will be paying. So it just seems confusing that it would be worded like that. Does anyone have any clarification as to why that is?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Catherine Fitzgerald is online and available to answer the questions.
Catherine, are you there?
Okay, thank you. And are we, so if we activated the mutual assistance agreement, where would the money come from if we had, I mean, if it was a, you know, a really large emergency and it ended up being a huge expenditure, where would that money come from?
If we were to provide mutual aid without passing those expenses along to the other municipalities, the same would apply. I hope I've answered that question.
Yes, you did, thank you. I think it's a great idea. I just wanted to know about those two financial questions, but I think it's good for the current times that we live in right now, so thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-0.
Item 23, infrastructure and engineering services.
23C, traffic and parking bylaw update for subdivisions in Chatham-Kent.
Councillor Bondi and Councillor Doyle, can I get you put this on the floor, please?
Sure, so moved.
So seconded.
Councillor Bondi, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Canada. Just a quick question. There's a lot going on here, obviously, but one in particular, Orchard Heights and Warwick Drive. There's going to be a stop sign installed on the northbound and southbound sections of Orchard Heights, which would be very pleasing to the residents that contacted me. I emailed this, I don't know, a month ago or so. Now, they were hoping for a four-way stop, and I'm sure there's some logic behind it, but if maybe this would be Edward, I'm not sure. If you could just give a brief explanation as to how you determine a two-way versus a four-way. Or not, Edward. Edward's sleeping. Just kidding.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Regarding that intersection in particular, we did find that
Sorry, can you introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are?
Excuse me. Jeff Hagan, Manager of Transportation, Infrastructure and Engineering Services. Regarding Warwick and Orchard Heights specifically, we did determine that two-way stop would be the most appropriate intersection control. We have an always stop policy. It's in line with provincial guidelines. Generally, an always stop is warranted at intersections with a balance of traffic volumes on all the approaches and also some fairly significant traffic volumes overall. So we did a traffic count at the intersection. We found that the volumes were below the threshold for an always stop. And in particular, Warwick Drive experiences significantly more volume than Orchard Heights. Now, there is development that's going to be happening along Orchard Heights. Based on what we expect for that development, we don't expect that the need for an always stop will be triggered. But once the development is done, we will be doing a follow-up count to confirm.
And that answered my second question. Thank you very much.
Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one person reach out to me, and I believe we've already talked about this a little bit. So they were saying that on Highland Drive in Blenheim, people weren't going to be allowed to park there anymore. I didn't really ever, like, I've seen that, I've driven there a lot, and there's not really any pedestrian cars that are parked there. It's more like the transport trucks might temporarily park there. But just for clarification to that person, they will still be allowed to park on one side of the street, just not both, correct? Is that...
Yes, that's correct. So that's shown in Appendix D. All the recommended parking and traffic changes are shown in Appendix D. That one's in Map 6 in particular. So throughout Appendix D, the yellow line indicates the side of the street that would be recommending that parking be removed or that a no stopping zone be added. And so on Highland, we're just recommending no parking zone on the west side up to the curve, and then the north side on the north side of the curve.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
We'll go on to notice of motion. Councillor Juvenville, then Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas mayors from several Ontario municipalities have recently petitioned the Premier of Ontario to invoke the Notwithstanding clause in relation to proposed measures addressing mental health, addiction, and homelessness. And whereas the Notwithstanding clause is designed to suspend the application of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And whereas the Charter is intended to protect the fundamental rights of all Canadian citizens without exception. And whereas Section 7 of the Charter guarantees everyone the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. And whereas the application of Section 7 of the Charter to issues concerning encampments and individuals living in temporary shelters was affirmed in the decision of Justice Volante in the Regional Municipality of Waterloo versus Persons Unknown and to be ascertained 2023 Ontario SC 670. Therefore, be it resolved that the Municipality of Chatham-Kent oppose the use of the Notwithstanding clause by the Government of Ontario in connection with any legislation that would facilitate the eviction or displacement of encampment residents. The Municipality of Chatham-Kent affirms that all individuals, regardless of their housing status or personal circumstances, are entitled to the full protection of their charter rights. The Municipality of Chatham-Kent calls upon the provincial government to work with the municipalities to address the root causes of homelessness while upholding our citizens' fundamental charter rights, that the provincial government carry more of the financial burden currently putting immense pressure on municipal budgets, and that this motion be distributed to the Ontario government, the Attorney General, the Finance Minister, and the Minister of Health, the Premier of Ontario, AMO, and Roma. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Bondi, move the following motion to be discussed and voted upon at the December 16th council meeting. That any new non-union hire over a salary of $50,000 require the approval of council. This policy would include all employment, including replacement hires. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to communication items. Councillor Crew, you have 2 items that you want to talk about.
All right, from the November 18th package, I'd like to pull item 3B. And I would like to reappoint Councillor McGrail for the 2025 SWIFT Board.
Councillor Anderson, second that.
I am happy to second that.
Any questions about that? Seeing none, anyone opposed? Motion carries. And the other one is 4D from December 9th.
4D, September 9th, yes. I would like to send a letter in support from Chatham-Kent Council on 4D, and I'm just trying to pull it up. I'll find it here in a second, too.
Councillor Crew, is it for the resolution of the City of Hamilton dated November 18th, reducing homelessness and managing encampments?
Okay, can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Finn. Any questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Councillor McGrail, you have one on 4G.
Yes, through you, Mayor Caniff. For not November 18th, but tonight's information package. Yes. So tonight I'm talking about the resolution from Western Ontario Wardens Caucus about non-native exotic wild animals. So in a recap, there is a motion that they would like, they're asking municipalities to support and adopt the resolution to urge the Ontario government to stop downloading responsibilities to municipalities. Instead, the Ontario government should restrict the possession, breeding, and use of non-native exotic wild animals and licensed zoos to support municipalities and guarantee the fair and consistent application of policy for the safety of Ontario citizens and the captive wild animal population. What they're really going for here is the province has not regulated the keeping or the use of exotic wild animals for display purposes in Ontario. Example, lions, tigers, monkeys, parrots, snakes, etc. And they can be kept and displayed in the province without restrictions unless there's a municipal bylaw. So what I'm asking is to support this motion to resolve that Chatham-Kent hereby petitions the provincial government to implement provincial regulations to restrict the possession, breeding, and use of non-native exotic wild animals in licensed zoos in order to guarantee the fair and consistent application of policy throughout Ontario for the safety of Ontario citizens and the non-native exotic wild animal protection. So I guess I need to do a resolution and.
Can I get a seconder on that? Councillor B. McGregor. Any questions regarding that? Anyone opposed to that? Seeing none, we're good to go.
Thank you.
Non-agenda business. This could be a record. This may be the first time ever I've seen nothing on non-agenda business. All right. Reading of the bylaws. We can't skip that one. Councillor Hall and Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to move the first and second reading, please?
So moved.
And seconded.
Any questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Third and final reading, Councillor McGrail and Councillor Wright.
I move.
I'll second it.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Resolution, council in closed session and adjournment. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, December 16th, 2024, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
And I will go to Councillor Cruz so she doesn't go through any withdrawals on her motions to second that.
Oh, I'll second it. I was fine with no.
Anyone opposed to folding it up at 8:44? Seeing none, have a great evening, everyone.